that cat. They used to call me Dr. Myers because they said I looked like him. And he was my father, according to Jack Dwyer. I lived in a livery stable. I slept side by side, sometimes in a stall. I could crawl between the legs of the wildest horses. I have studied without getting
Horses and men are just alike.
Sail at rest in the harbor.
On spring days, I turned through the country to get the feeling I was sometimes lost. But I was not separate.
I was not beloved of the village.
I used to lose myself as a good son, along with our even codes and snakes, anything that had an ounce of against
From the dust, I lift my voice in protest. My flowering silence. And I, who had a child, share long to hear her happiness. I love to use Fun River.
People gather
Flying shoes at least 92.
congregations out of prayer.
With the moon.
My name's Lillian Stewart. I was down on Lambert Hutchins, born in a cottage near the gristmill, but reared in the mansion there on the hill with its spiders and its all-day windows. And he drew $6 out as well, and my mother was without nature. Stood on a cloud of paradise, and set upon the big crystal of dust. Now I supported him, and he guarded our happiness. But I believe that house was a curse. But Father's fortune was little, that is. And when my husband found out he had married a girl who was really full
Things that are new grow old and lank.
well, he taunted me with this bias, and he called the house a fraud on the world, a treacherous lure to young men raising hopes of a dowry not to be had. And a man, while selling his boat, should get enough from the betrayal of the people to wall the whole of his family in.
And colors that run in spite of you.
He vexed my
Lame
life,
though you are.
till I went back west and lived like an old maid, and died keeping house for love. Now, unless y'all want to help me with this, I've got work to do.
And I, who attended all
I'm Mrs. Kessler. Mr. Kessler, as you know, was in the Army, and he drew $6 a month as a pension. He stood on the street corner talking politics or sat at home reading Grant's memoirs, while I supported the family by washing them, learning the secrets of old people, counterpanes. For things that are new grow old at length, they're replaced with better or not at all. People always prosper and fall back. They don't know the and rents and patches widen with time. No thread or needle can paste decay. There are stains that back with soap, and colors that run in spite of you. Lame though you are for spoiling a dress.
And a man, while selling his boat,
Handkerchiefs and napery have their secrets. Wall the whole of his family laundress. Life knows all about it. And I swear, I, who attended all the funerals held in Spoon River, say that I never saw a dead face without thinking it looked like something washed in an island. I think I'm right. Are you right? Do you think I'm right? Nice seeing y'all. I think we can move along now.
I wish I had stayed home and gone to jail for stealing the hogs of Colonel Trennery instead of running off and joining the army.
Mel Pohammer ran away to the war the day before Colonel Trennery swore out a war for just net stealing hogs. But that's not the reason he turned a soldier. He caught me running with Lucius Atherton. We quarreled and I told him never again to cross my path. Then he stole the hogs and went to war.
Rather 1,000 times the county jail than to belong to this marble figure with wings and the granite pedestal bearing the words, Pro Patria. What do they mean anyway?
Back of every soldier's book.
played Snap Out in Winchester. One night, driving home, we changed partners in the moonlight on the way home in mid-platoon. And then I met Davis. We were married and lived together for 70 years. Enjoying, working, raising the 12 children, 8 of whom we lost ere I reached the age of 60. I spun, I wove, I kept house, I nursed the sick, and I made the garden. For holiday, I would roam over the fields where sang the larks. And by Spoon River, I gathered many a shell, many a flower, and medicinal weed. I shouted to the wooded hills, oh, and I sang to the green valleys. At 96, I'd lived long enough, that's all. Passed to a sweet repose. Oh, what is this I hear about your sorrow, your weariness, your anger, discontent, drooping hopes? Degenerate sons and daughters, life is too strong for you. It takes life to love life.
I started on to darkness. There was a hazy sky and a few stars, which I followed as best I could. It was 9 o'clock. I was trying to get home, but somehow I was lost, though really keeping the road. Then I reeled through a gate and into a yard and called at the top of my voice, "Oh, Fida! Oh, Mr. Jones!" Thought it was his house and he would show me the way home. But who would step out but A.D. Blood in his nightshirt, waving a stick of wood and cursing about the whoring saloons and the criminals they made? "You drunken Oscar Himmel," he said. As I stood there weaving to and fro, taking the blows from the stick in his hand, till I dropped down dead at his feet.
So don't you mind people grinning in your face. You know they'll jump you up and down, turn you round and round. As soon as your back is turned, they'll be trying to crush you down. So bear this in mind, a true friend is hard to find. So don't you mind people grinning in your face. I'll show you
only 8 years old. Before I grew up and knew what it meant, I had no words for it except that I was frightened, and I told my mother my father got a pistol and was going to kill Charlie, who's a big boy, 15 years old, except for his mother. Nevertheless, the story clung to me. But the man who married me, a widower of 35, was a newcomer and never heard it till 2 years after we were married, and then he considered himself cheated, and the whole village agreed that I was not really a virgin. Well, he deserted me and I died the following winter.
We quarreled that morning, for he was 65 and I was 30. And I was nervous and heavy with the child whose birth I dreaded. I thought over the last letter written me by that young, estranged soul whose betrayal of me I had concealed by marrying the old man. Then I took morphine and sat down to read. Across the blackness that came over my eyes, I see the flickering lights of these words, even now. And Jesus said unto him, Verily I say unto thee, today thou shalt be with me in paradise.
Henry got me the child, knowing that I could not bring forth life without losing my own. And in my youth, therefore, I entered the portals of death. Traveler, it is believed in the village where I live that Henry loved me with a husband's love. But I proclaim from the dust that he slew me to gratify his hatred.
Suppose you stood just 5'2" and worked your way as a grocery clerk, studying law by candlelight until you became an attorney at law.
How does it happen? Tell me. That I, who was the most erudite of lawyers.
And then suppose, through your diligence and regular church attendance, you became attorney for Thomas Rhodes, collected mortgages, collected notes, and represented all the widows in the probate court.
Who knew Blackstone and Coke almost by heart. Who made the greatest speech the courthouse has ever heard.
And through it all, they jeered at your size, laughed at your clothes, and your polished boots.
I was the most erudite of lawyers and wrote a brief that won the praise of Justice Breeze.
And then suppose you became the county judge. And Jefferson Howard and Kinsey King and Harmon Whitney and all the giants who stared at you were forced to come before the bar and say, Your Honor. Well, don't you think it was natural that I made it hard for them?
How does it happen? Tell me. That I lie here unmarked, forgotten, while Chase Henry, the town drunkard, has a marble stone topped by an urn, where in nature, in a mood ironical, has sown a flowering weed.
I belong to the church and to the party of prohibition. And the villagers thought I died of eating watermelon. In truth, I had cirrhosis of the liver. For every noon for 30 years, I slipped behind the prescription partition in Trainer's drugstore and poured a generous drink from the bottle marked Spiritus Frumenti.
How many times in the 20 years I was your leader, friends of Spoon River, did you neglect the convention and the caucus and leave the burden on my hands of guarding and saving the people's cause? Sometimes because you were ill.
Well,
Or your grandmother was ill. Or else you drank too much and fell asleep.
that's reasonable.
Or else you said, he is our leader. All will be well. He fights for us. We have nothing to do but follow. But oh, how you cursed me when I fell, and cursed me saying I had betrayed you in leaving the caucus room for a moment when the people's enemies there assembled, waited, and watched for a chance to destroy the sacred rights of the people.
Where were you?
You common rabble! I left the caucus to go to the urinal.
Did you ever hear of Eddie Wheatus getting back any of the money that he earned while supporting the candidates, or for writing up to the cannon factory to get people to invest, or for the bankers, and how he suppressed that information when it was rotten and ready to break? What about the circuit judge who did not care about anything but the Q Railroad and the bankers? And how about Reverend Pete, Reverend Sibley? Did they give any of the monies they earned for sitting still or speaking out as the leaders wished them to on the building of the Spoon River Waterworks? But Daisy Frazier, walked up along roads and passed along people with nods and smiles and words such as "there she goes," "there she goes," was never once taken before Justice Arnett without contributing $10 in cost to the school fund of Spoon River. That's right.
I spent my money trying to elect you mayor, A.D. Blood.
If you in the village think that my work was a good one, who closed the saloons, who stopped all playing at cards?
I lavish my admiration upon you. You, to my mind, were the almost perfect man.
Who hailed old Daisy Frazier before Justice Arnett in many a crusade to purge the people of sin.
You devoured my personality and the idealism of my youth.
If you and the people, if you in the village think that my work was a good one, then why do you let the milliner's daughter, Dora, and that worthless son of Benjamin Pantier nightly use my grave as their unholy pillow?
And the straight of a high-souled fealty, and all my hopes for the world, and all my beliefs in truth, were smelted up in the blinding heat of my devotion to you, and molded into your image. And then, when I found out what you were, that your soul was small, and your words were as false as your blue-white porcelain teeth, and cuffs of celluloid, I hated the love I had for you. I hated myself. I hated you for my wasted soul and wasted youth. And I say to all, beware of ideals. Beware of giving your love away to any man alive.
Hi, cousin girl from Germany. Blue eyes, rosy, happy, and strong.
I was the only son of Francis Harris of Virginia and Thomas Green of Kentucky, a valiant and honorable blood both.
And the first place that I worked was at Thomas Green's. On the summer's day when she was away, he stole into the kitchen and took me right in his arms and kissed me on my throat by turning my head. Then neither of us seemed to know what happened. I cried for what would become of me, and I cried as my secret began to show. One day Mrs. Green said she understood. And make no trouble for me, and being childless will adopt it. He giving her a farm to be still, so she hid into the house and sent out rumors as it was going to happen to her. And all went well. The child was born. They were so kind to me. Later I married, because Wordman, and years passed. But at the political rallies, when sitters-by thought I was crying at the eloquence of Hamilton Green, no, that was not it. I wanted to say, that's my son. That's my son.
It is to them I owe all I became. A judge, member of Congress, leader of the state. From my mother I inherited vivacity, fancy, language. From my father, will, logic, judgment. All honor to them for any service I was to the people.
Chickens are crowing on Sourwood Mountain.
Parents.
White men played all sorts of jokes
All
on
they
me.
said was true. I wrecked my father's bank with dabbling weed.
Not parents.
I wanted to go away to college, but rich Aunt Persis wouldn't help me.
They called me
But
the
this was true.
weakling.
I was bound weak for him as well.
Because as a boy, I made balloons and magnificent
gardens
and
the
toys
lawns
made
and bought John Alden's books
and
with my
choo-choo
earnings
trains that
and
went down the
toiled.
track. And I even made a telephone out of a can and thread.
I go fishing. They take big fish off my hook and put little ones on while I was away getting the shrink. It made me believe I hadn't seen the right the fish I caught.
My brothers were strong, while I, the last child of parents who had aged, inherited only their residue of power.
I played the cornet.
But suppose your head is
And I
red
painted pictures.
bound.
And I modeled in clay, and I was cast as the villain in the octoroon.
When Burr Robert Circus came to town,
And there was
they got the ringmaster to let a tame leopard in the ring.
more than 70.
It made me believe I was whipping a wild beast like Samson when I, one off for $50, dragged him out to his cage.
21.
With her throat so paralyzed when she swallowed the soup
And
ran
in
out
order
of
to
her
live,
mouth
I
like
had
a
to live.
duck.
I had to learn the art of watchmaking.
Investing
So
her
I took
income
on
in mortgages,
the
fretting
square.
all the time about rents.
One time I went to my blacksmith shop and shook as I saw some horseshoes sliding across the floors of Falau.
That day, I
What's
was
Simmons?
sawing wood
I
for
put
her.
magnets under the barrel of water.
Waited until your head was gray.
But they, my
And
brothers, were
reading
eaten up in
Proudhon
the fury
in
of the flesh,
between.
which I
And
had
hard
not.
to skip beats to
Made pulp in the activity of the senses, which I had
I
not.
went into the
Hardened by
house
the
for a
growth
glass
of the
of water.
lust, which I had not, though making
There she
names
sat,
and riches for
asleep
themselves.
in her chair.
Thinking. Not of business, but of engines. For I had studied calculus to
Lying
build.
beside her on the table.
Then
and
I,
a bottle of
weakling,
chloroform on top of
the
the book.
simpleton, resting in a little corner of life, saw a vision. And through me many saw the vision, not knowing it was through me. Thus a tree sprang from me
And
the
held
mustard
it to her
seed.
nose till she died.
Every one of you.
Oh,
Wild
Delia,
man.
Delia, you
Fool.
and Proudhon steadied my
About
hand.
fish, about the
And
lepers
the
too.
coroner said she died
You know
of
any more than the
heart
horseshoes
failure.
did. It moved you about
Go
Spoon
out
River.
on Broadway and be run over.
And all the Spoon River
I
came out to
married
see it
you,
work.
and
they waited and they waited and they waited.
A joke on you,
But it never
Spoon
did.
River?
A lot of folks thought I was still a genius, but
That was
hampered by the
best day of my
storm.
life.
It was a lie.
Wow.
It wasn't true.
Go
I
around.
didn't have the brains.
Ah, cheer up, Gordon.
Right here.
All they said was true. I wrecked my father's bank with my loans to dabble in wheat.
I wanted to go away to college, but rich Aunt Persis wouldn't help me.
But this was true. I was buying wheat for him as well, who couldn't margin a deal in his name because of his church relationship.
So I made gardens and raked the lawns and bought John Alden's books with my earnings and toiled for the very means of life.
And while Jordan was serving his term, I chased the will-o'-the-wisp of women and mockery of wine in New York. It's deadly to sicken of wine and women when there's nothing else left in life.
I wanted to marry Delia Prickett, but how can I do it with what I earn?
Burr Robert Circus came to town.
But suppose your head was ready, bowed on a table, covered with acrid stubs and cigarettes and empty glasses, and a knock is heard.
And there was Aunt Persis, more than 70, who sat half alive in her wheelchair.
And you know it's the knock, so long drowned out by popping corks and the peacock screams and demerits.
With her throat so paralyzed, when she swallowed, the soup ran out of her mouth like a duck. Gourmand, yet investing her income in mortgages, fretting all the time about her notes and rents and papers.
And you look up, and there's your theft.
That day, I was sawing wood for her,
Who's waited until your head was gray.
and reading Proudhon in between.
And hard to skip beats to say to you, the game is ended. I've called for you.
I went into the house for a glass of water, and there she sat, asleep in her chair.
Not a business.
Go go out on Broadway and be run over. He'll ship you back to Spoon River. And Prudhog lying beside her on the table. And a bottle of chloroform on top of the book that she used sometimes for an aching tooth.
Not knowing it was through me.
I took the chloroform, poured it on a handkerchief, and held it to her nose till she died. Oh, Delia, Delia, you and Prudhog steadied my hand. And the coroner said she died of heart failure. Go out on Broadway and be run over. They'll ship you back to Spoon River. I married Delia and got the money. A joke on you, Spoon River. That was the best day of my life. Amazing.
When I died, the circulating library, which I built up for Spoon River and managed for the good of the inquiring minds, was sold off at auction on public square, as if to destroy the last vestige of my memory and influence. For those of you who cannot understand the virtue of knowing Valney's ruins, as well as Butler's analogy, and Faust, as well as Evangeline, were really the power of the village. Often you'd ask me, what is the use of knowing the evil in the world? Come out of your way now, Spoon River. Choose your own good and call it good. For I can never make you see that no one knows what is good who knows not what is evil. And no one knows what is true who knows not what is false.
That's right.
Where is my boy? My boy, in what far part of the world? The boy I love the best in all the school. I, the teacher, the old maid, the maiden heart, who made them all my children. Did I know my boy aright? Thinking of him as spirit, aflame, alive, ever, ever aspiring. Oh, boy. Boy for whom I prayed and prayed in many a watchful hour at night.
Well, Emily Sparks, your prayers are not reason. Your love was not all in vain. And I owe whatever I was in life to your hope that would not give me up. To your love that saw me still as good.
Do you remember the letter I wrote to you of the beautiful love of Christ?
Dear Emily Sparks, let me tell you the story. I passed the effect of my father and mother. The milliner's daughter made me trouble. And out I went into the world, where I passed through every peril known of wine and women and the joy of life. Well, one night, in a room in the Rue de Rivoli, I was drinking wine with a black-eyed cocotte. And tears swam into my eyes. She thought they were amorous tears and smiled for a thought of her conquest over me. But my soul was 3,000 miles away. In the days where you taught me in Spoon River.
Wherever you are, my boy, work for the sake of your soul. That all the clay of you, all the dross of you should yield to the fire of you, till the fire is nothing but light. Nothing but light.
And just because you could no more love me, nor pray for me, nor write me letters, the eternal silence of you spoke instead. And And that black-eyed cocoa took the tears for hers, as well as the deceiving kisses that I gave her. And somehow, from that hour, I had a new vision. Dear Emily Sparks.
Herbert broke our engagement of 8 years when Annabelle returned to the village from the seminary.
All your sorrow, Louise, and hatred for me sprang from your delusion that it was wantonness of spirit, contempt of your soul's rights which made me turn to Annabelle and forsake you.
Ah, me. If I had let my love for him alone, it might have grown into a beautiful sorrow, who knows, filling my life with a healing fragrance.
You really grew to hate me for love of me, because I was your soul's happiness, formed and tempered, to solve your life's problems for you and would not.
But I tortured it. I poisoned it. I blinded its eyes and it became hatred. Deadly ivy instead of clematis. And my soul fell from its supports, its tendrils tangled in decay.
But you were my misery. If you had been my happiness, would I not have clung to you?
Do not let the will play gardener to your soul, unless you are sure it is wiser than your soul's nature.
This is life's sorrow. That one can only be happy where two are, and that our hearts are drawn to stars which want us not.
Roundhouse!
If the learned Supreme Court of Illinois got at the secret of every case, as well as it does a case of rape, it would be the greatest court in the world.
At first I suspected something. She acted so calm and absent-minded.
A jury of neighbors mostly, with Butch Weldy as foreman, found me guilty in 10 minutes and 2 ballots on a case like this. Richard Bandel and I had trouble over a fence, and my wife and Mrs. Bandel quarreled as whether our paver was a finer town in Table Grove.
One day, I heard the back door shut as I entered the front, and I saw him slink back of the smokehouse into the lot and went across the field.
I woke one morning with the love of God brimming over my heart. So I went to see Richard to settle affairs in the spirit of Jesus Christ.
Amen.
Amen. I knocked on the door, his wife opened. She smiled and asked me in. I entered, she slammed the door and began to scream, "Take your hands off, you low-down varlet!" Just then her husband entered. I waved my hands, choked up for words. He went for his gun and I ran out. But neither the Supreme Court nor my wife believed the words she said.
I meant to kill him on sight, but that day, walking near 4th Bridge without a stake or stone in hand, all of a sudden I saw him, standing, scared to death, holding his rabbits. And all I could say was, "Don't. Don't!" as he aimed and fired at my heart.
They have written on my stone the words, his life was gentle, and the elements so mixed in him that nature might stand up and say to the world, this is a man.
I have 2 monuments besides this granite obelisk. One, the house I built on the hill with its spires, bay windows, and roof of slate. The other, the lakefront of Chicago, where the railroad keeps its switching yards with crunching engines and whistling wheels and smoke and soot thrown over the city, and the crash of cars along the boulevard. A blot like a hog pen on the harbor of a great metropolis. Foul as a sty.
This was a man. Those who knew me smiled as they read this empty rhetoric.
I helped to give this heritage to generations yet unborn with my vote in the House of Representatives, and the lure of the thing was to be at rest from the never-ending fright of need, and to give my daughters gentle breathing and a sense of security in life.
My epitaph should have been, life was not gentle to him, and the elements so mixed in him that...
But you see, go ahead.
Well, I'm saying, while I lived, I could not cope.
Oh, this place of silence. There are no kindred spirits. quiet fields and read these words. Go now.
At 4 o'clock, in late October, I sat alone in the country schoolhouse. Back from the roads, amid stricken fields, and an eddy of wind blew leave on the pane, and crooned in the flow of the candle stove with its open door blurring the shadows with the spectral glow of a dying fire. In an idle mood, I was running the planchette, and all at once, my wrist grew limp. My hand moved rapidly over the board until the name of Charles Guiteau was spelled or threatened to materialize before me. I rose and fled from the room bareheaded into the dusk, afraid of my gift. And after that, the spirits swarmed. Chaucer, Caesar, Poe, Marlowe, Cleopatra, and Mr. Surratt wherever I went with messages. Oh. Mere trifling twaddle, Spoon River agreed. Oh, you talk nonsense to children, don't you? Oh! And suppose I see what you never saw and never heard of and have no word for. Well, I must talk nonsense when you ask me what it is I see.
I was just turning 21, and every Phipps, the Sunday school superintendent, made a speech in Windows Opera House. The honor of the flag must be upheld, he said, whether it be assailed by a barbarous tribe of Tagalogs or the greatest power in Europe. And we cheered and cheered the speech and the flag he waved as he spoke. So I went to the war in spite of my father, and followed the flag till I saw it raised by our camp in a rice field near Manila. And all of us cheered and cheered it. But there were flies and poisonous things, and there was the deadly water and the cruel heat and the sickening, putrid food, and the smell of the trench just back of the tents where the soldiers went to empty themselves. And there were the horse who followed us, full of syphilis. And days of loathing and nights of fear to the hour of the charge through the steaming swamp, following the flag. Till I fell with a scream shot through the guts! Now there is a flag over me in Spoon River. A flag. A flag.
I, born Weimar, a mother who is French and a German father, Muslim professor. Orphan at 14, I became a dancer, knowing as the Russian Sonia. All up and down we art in Paris, mistress betimes of the sundry looks and counts, and later for poor artists and poets. At 40, I saw New York. And I met old Patrick Hummer on the boat. Red face and hair. Though returning his 60th year. Returning after having sold shipload of a cattle in the German city Hamburg. He brought me to Spoon River.
Oh, well, he ain't the same as when I boarded him and he worked with my husband, and we all called him Abe back in Menard. As a last attempt, I turned to the guard and said, "Please say it's old Aunt Hannah Armstrong from Illinois. Come to see him about her sick boy in the army." Well, in a moment, they let me in. And when he saw me, he broke in a laugh, and he dropped his business as president and wrote in his own hand Doug's discharge, talking the while of early days and telling stories.